The whole family decided to pool our money for a high-stakes lottery ticket. I offered up my lucky numbers, the same ones I'd been playing for 5 years. Bad juju, my uncle yelled, tearing the slip of paper to shreds. He said he wouldn't take those numbers even if they were free. On the night of the drawing, they all stared at the TV, only to be disappointed. But I was ecstatic. The winning numbers were the ones I'd bought myself, on a separate ticket. To get a piece of the prize, they sued me. They insisted the ticket we'd all agreed on was the winning one. When it looked like the truth, that they'd never agreed to my numbers, was about to come out, my father came up with a plan. If she's dead, we can inherit the money. They tied me to a pile of firewood and burned me alive. The sounds of my struggle alerted our neighbor. Mrs. Gable opened her door with a smile. "It's nothing," she said. "Just teaching a stray dog a lesson." When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day we were all buying the lottery ticket. "Hasn't Jenna been playing for years? Let's have her pick the numbers. We're sure to win." My uncle's coarse voice boomed, his greasy face plastered with a calculating grin. The familiar words sent a shiver down my spine. I clenched my fists, trying to still the trembling in my fingertips, and nonchalantly pulled out my phone. Seeing the date on the screen, I finally believed it. I was back at the beginning of the nightmare. In my past life, someone in our city won a $260 million jackpot. Green with envy, my relatives roped the whole family into pooling our money for a big ticket. I didn't think much of it and agreed. But the ticket we bought together was a bust. The real winner was the ticket I bought myself with the numbers I'd been playing for 5 years. A $5 million prize that became the fuse that led to my bitter end. This time, I would not make the same mistake. Oh, I couldn't, Uncle Rick. I lowered my head, hiding the hatred in my eyes. I've played these numbers for 5 years and haven't even won $200. Exactly. My aunt chimed in, her voice shrill. The nail on her outstretched finger, painted a garish red, nearly poked me in the eye. She's been a jinx since she was a kid. She was 6 when she got her own mother killed. You think numbers picked by someone that cursed could ever win? In your dreams. A shadow crossed my face, and my eyes began to well up. Years ago, my mother had drowned trying to save me from a river. It was a lifelong nightmare. No matter how much my family mocked me, I always believed it was my fault. Hey, let's not get into all that. My father, Frank, stepped in to smooth things over, quickly changing the subject as his eyes drifted unconsciously toward Maria. Let's have Kevin pick. That kid's always been lucky. After my mother died, it took my father a few years to get over his grief before marrying Maria. Kevin was their son, my half-brother. Maria patted Kevin's shoulder smugly. You bet. When Kevin was a baby, he grabbed a stack of cash and wouldn't let go. Not like some people who are just born to be a drain on the family. She shot me a contemptuous glare. I bit my lip so hard I thought it would bleed, my heart filled with rage. The night I was burned alive in my last life, I had begged and pleaded through the flames, asking my father to spare me for my mother's sake. All I got in return was Maria's monstrous grin. Your mother? Your little fall into the river was a setup, designed by me and your father. We had to get her out of the way. Otherwise, how could I have married him? Then, as if remembering something, she covered her mouth and giggled. You know, that bitch was useful for something. If she hadn't died, your dad never would have gotten this compensation housing from the city. How does it feel? Comfy, living in a house your mother paid for with her life. I stared at my father's emotionless face, Maria's words ringing in my ears. I gave up the struggle and let the fire consume me. Let me pick? Fine by me. Kevin's voice snapped me out of the painful memory. Seeing them all excitedly discussing the numbers, I quietly started a voice recording on my phone. I pushed the slip with the numbers I'd been playing for 5 years in front of them. I've been playing this set for 5 years. Maybe there's a chance. Want to take a look? My father glanced down. The moment he saw the numbers, his face darkened, and he slammed the paper onto the floor. Are you trying to jinx us on purpose? Maria picked it up, confused. Then she shrieked. Oh my God! You're using a dead person's birthday and death day as lottery numbers? Jenna, are you sick in the head? My mother gave me life twice. Every date associated with her was sacred to me. But to them, They were just cursed numbers that brought back memories of their own evil deeds. They would never choose them. And they didn't. Seeing they had completely dismissed my suggestion, I picked the slip up off the floor. I handed it to my uncle. "Uncle Rick, take a look. Everyone says these are good numbers. What if they win?" "Bad juju." He snatched the slip and ripped it to pieces. "Those are dead man's numbers. Even if you won, it would bring nothing but bad luck. If you show me that filth again, I swear I'll teach you a lesson your father won't." Kevin snickered, then deliberately stomped the shredded paper into the floor. "Jenna, your entire monthly salary wouldn't even cover a new pair of my shoes, so don't embarrass yourself. If you miss your short-lived mom so much, why don't you go join her in the river?" A few cold, mocking laughs echoed through the room. I fought back the rage rising in my chest and turned to leave. Behind me, my aunt's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Look at that, getting an attitude after just a few words. No wonder nobody wants her." Maria chimed in with a cackle. "Nobody even cried when her mother died, and now she's playing the dutiful daughter? Forget it. Let's not talk about that cursed business." I shut my bedroom door, blocking out their ugly faces, and triumphantly stopped the recording on my phone. This time, I would watch them burn in the fires of their own greed. When I came back out, they had already made their decision. Maria was stuffing cash into Kevin's pocket. "Buy a few extra tickets. Mom's counting on you to make us rich." She saw me enter and her face instantly soured. Some people are just a useless drain, a total lost cause." I ignored her and fiddled with my phone, swallowing my disgust as I zelled Kevin $200, making sure to add a note. "Kevin, I have a feeling my numbers are going to win. Just buy 50 plays for me as part of the group purchase. The money's on me." A notification pinged on his phone. Standing by the door, Kevin pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and burst out laughing. "Hey everyone! Jenna sent me money." My aunt's sharp voice cut in. "How much? Don't tell me she's trying to freeload on our numbers. She's such a jinx, we can't let her in on this. We'll catch her bad luck. $200. Kevin waved his phone, deliberately raising his voice. "She wants me to buy her that dead person's ticket." As he spoke, he accepted the money. My father suddenly rushed over and swung his arm, slapping me hard across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the room. My cheek burned, and my head rang. "Jenna!" He was panting, spittle flying from his mouth as he screamed in my face. "If you ever try to disgust us with those dead person numbers again, I'll send you down to meet her myself." My uncle, cracking sunflower seeds, mumbled around a mouthful. "It's about time you disciplined her like that. You've obviously been too soft on her. That's why she has no respect." I clutched my face and walked over to Kevin, my voice barely a whisper. "Just do me this one favor." "A favor?" "For you." Kevin's response was a blast of undisguised mockery. "Jenna, I think you're desperate for money." He spat on the floor, the gob of saliva landing right next to my foot. "How about this? If you get on your knees and beg me right now, I'll consider buying one ticket for you." Hearing this, Maria immediately shrieked. "Kevin, ignore her. We wouldn't take those cursed numbers if they were free." When I didn't move, Kevin pursed his lips and shot me a disgusted look. "I'm keeping the $200. You eat our food and live in our house, so you should be paying me respect anyway." He slammed the door and walked off humming a tune. The room filled once again with cheerful chatter as they fantasized about their future riches. I rubbed my swollen cheek, feeling nothing. Everything was going exactly as I'd planned. Everyone was steering clear of my numbers. Their scorn today would become the source of their regret tomorrow night. While they were lost in their fantasies, I slipped out of the house. I found a lottery retailer far from home and bought 50 plays of the winning numbers. Then I went back to the store where Kevin bought his tickets and purchased 2 more. The only thing more painful than not winning the lottery is knowing you once had the chance. The next morning when I woke up, my dad, Kevin, and Maria were praying to the god of wealth. When he saw me leave my room, my dad frowned and hurriedly stuck a few more incense sticks in the holder. "Jenna, are you brainless or just blind? Can't you see we're praying? Did you have to come out now and bring your bad luck with you?" Maria sat on the sofa with her legs crossed, inspecting her nails. Almost 30 and still mooching off us at home. She blew on her nails. Old man Miller from down the road was asking about you the other day. He may be blind, but he's offering a $6,000 dowry. I ignored them and checked the time on my phone. To escape this disgusting family for good, I had prepared a little show for them. The appointment was for right now. Sure enough, a knock came at the door right on schedule. I hurried to open it and was met by several beefy guys in black suits and sunglasses. I gave the leader, Donnie, a subtle look. He understood his role and began the performance. He kicked the half-open door wide open and gave me a hard shove. What the hell took you so long? You think hiding in here means you don't have to pay up? He swaggered into the room and motioned to his crew. Don't just stand there, find a seat. If we don't get our money today, we're not leaving. Maria looked terrified, her scream nearly piercing the air. What are you doing? If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. Donnie was unfazed, casually pulling over a chair and sitting down. The police? You owe us money, it's the law of the land. The cops will be on my side. My father's face was a dark mask. Who owes you money? Get the hell out of my house. Ha, playing dumb? You won't cry until you see the coffin. Donnie pulled out a document and shook it. Jenna is your daughter, right? She owes us $500,000. We've got the video of her agreeing to the loan. You trying to back out now? To make the act more convincing, I had already recorded a video of myself for the facial recognition and prepared a forged loan agreement. As everyone's eyes turned to me, I threw myself into the role and dropped to my knees with a thud. Dad, 6 months ago you said Kevin needed money for a car, and that I couldn't come home until I got it. I had no choice, but the interest kept piling up. I'm your only daughter, you have to help me. Maria, I bought you all your makeup, bags, and clothes over the years. Please sell them and help me pay this back. I promise I'll pay you back double. The commotion brought my uncle and his wife, Aunt Carol, out of the guest room, rubbing their eyes. I scrambled on my knees over to them. Uncle Rick, I owe hundreds of thousands. When you were in the hospital, you didn't want to hire a nurse, so you made me quit my job to take care of you for a month. You can't abandon me now. Hearing my desperate cries, Maria panicked. She rushed over, grabbed my hair, and tried to drag me out of the house. You jinx. It wasn't enough to get your mother killed. Now you're trying to ruin us too. Get out of our house. I clung to the leg of a table and turned to Donnie, who was enjoying the show. Sir, that young man is my brother. The car he's driving was bought with your money. You should take it. Also, we all pitched in for a lottery ticket. The drawing is tonight. We'll definitely have the money to pay you back then. If that doesn't work, my family members are all healthy. They've got kidneys, corneas, all that stuff. Seeing the men in black closing in, Kevin panicked and blurted out an explanation. Jenna, that money for the car was a gift. It was a gift. Your debt has nothing to do with me. If you're going to die, go die outside. Don't drag us down with you. That's right. A gift. To make themselves feel better about bleeding me dry, Frank and Maria had demanded I label every transfer to the family as a gift, or they'd threatened to cut me off. The old, foolish me had desperately tried to hold on to that last shred of family. But now I was going to send them to their own funerals, one by one. My father was shaking with rage, the veins in his neck bulging. Even if the lottery ticket wins, it's ours. What does it have to do with a jinx like you? Now get out. I felt a surge of joy, but kept up my act. Dad, you can't abandon me. I'll die if you don't help me. My father turned away, his voice as cold as ice. Then you deserve to die. He turned, yanked open a drawer, and slammed our family's household registry on the coffee table. He flipped to my page and in front of everyone ripped it to shreds. From this moment on, I have no daughter. Your life and death are your own damn business. I staggered to my feet, wiping away non-existent tears and fighting to keep from laughing out loud. Fine. We're done. Just don't you regret this. Hearing that, Maria almost broke into a crooked smile. Regret it? Anyone who gets involved with a jinx like you is the one who'll have regrets. Stop pretending to be pathetic. Get out. I walked out of the house I had lived in for over 20 years without looking back. Maria's shrill voice followed me. Quick, throw all her stuff out. It's all cursed. That night, I lay on a luxurious bed in a 5-star hotel, calmly watching the surveillance footage from my phone. I had installed a camera in the living room the day before, not for any reason other than to watch their faces when the winning numbers were announced. Kevin clutched the lottery ticket, his eyes glued to the TV. But as the first number was read, they all slumped back in their chairs, defeated. My uncle's disgusted voice came through the screen. That damn jinx. It's all your fault for picking these crap numbers. We didn't even win $5. Give me my money back for the group buy. Maria shot back in her high-pitched voice. You can't say that now. When Kevin was picking the numbers, you were calling him a genius. Now that we lost, you want your money back. A crash interrupted their argument as a cup hit the floor. Aunt Carol was slumped on the ground, her trembling finger pointing at the screen as she stammered. The winning numbers, they're the ones that girl picked. Chapter 2. Maria furiously grabbed the incense burner from the altar and smashed it on the floor. Her hysterical screams echoed through the phone. Impossible. How could those cursed dead person numbers win? Uncle Rick suddenly grabbed Kevin by the collar, hoisting him into the air. The designer t-shirt he'd been so proud of was now choking him, turning his face purple. Didn't your sister transfer you money? Sputtering, my uncle continued. She asked you to buy that ticket for her, didn't she? Did you buy it or not? Everyone in the room turned to stare at Kevin. Kevin's neck was stiff, his Adam's apple bobbing as he stammered. You all said the numbers were bad luck, so I didn't. Before he could finish, his uncle threw him to the ground and started kicking him. You useless piece of trash. His eyes were bloodshot as he screamed at Kevin. Do you have any idea how much money you just cost us? We could sell you and it wouldn't be enough to cover it. Maria, worried about her son, rushed forward to push her brother-in-law away. What's the point of complaining now, you old fool? My father grabbed Maria's wrist and slapped her. You bitch. If it wasn't for you insisting Kevin pick the numbers. The slap sent Maria stumbling, her lipstick smearing across her chin like a streak of blood. Blame me. Maria suddenly burst into manic laughter. Frank, don't you act like some saint. Weren't you the one who personally? Shut up. My father's face changed, and he slapped her again, cutting her off. Just as they were about to come to blows, Kevin suddenly screamed. Jenna played those numbers for 5 years. She definitely bought a ticket. If we find her, the money is still ours. It was as if they'd found a lifeline. Their bloodshot eyes lit up in unison. Yes. Yes. Call your sister now. Maria shrieked, urging Kevin on. My phone rang almost immediately. I answered, and Kevin's sickeningly sweet voice oozed through the speaker. Jenna, where are you? Mom and Dad have been thinking, and blood is thicker than water. You know? We scraped some money together, so maybe. A cold smile touched my lips. I let out a soft hum, cutting him off. Didn't Frank say we were done with each other? There was a distinct pause on the other end. Then my uncle's frantic voice broke in. Jenna. He was panting, desperate to get the words out. You took care of me for so long when I was in the hospital. I always knew you were a good kid. It was those loan sharks. They must have forced you to do it, right? Maria snatched the phone, her voice so gentle it was nauseating. Jenna, honey, I made you some chicken soup. Come home and have some. Maria, save the soup for your precious son. He must have won you the lottery, right? After a moment of silence, I heard my father's furious, muffled roar from the other end. Why are you wasting time with her? I raised her. Her money is my money. Tell her to hand over the ticket right now, or I'll call the cops and say she stole from us. I had no time for his nonsense. I hung up. On the camera feed, I watched an enraged Frank slam his phone to the ground. I calmly took a sip of my wine. Don't worry, I thought. We're just getting started. The day after the drawing, I took my ticket to the lottery commission and claimed my prize. Seeing the after-tax total of $200 million transfer into my account, I felt a wave of relief. Now all I had to do was deal with my blood-sucking relatives, and I could finally start my new, happy life. That day, the owner of the lottery shop called our house to offer his congratulations. Frank, you're a lucky man. Your daughter bought a ticket at my place and won 2 first prize jackpots. Your ancestors must be smiling down on you. On my monitor, the living room erupted into chaos. Kevin knocked over the fruit bowl on the coffee table, sending apples rolling everywhere. The newspaper fell from my uncle's hands. My father froze, teacup in hand, not even noticing the hot tea spilling all over his pants. Maria's shriek was sharp enough to shatter glass. Is that true? Are you sure it was Jenna who won? After getting confirmation from the shop owner, my father lunged forward and slammed the phone down. The room was silent for a few seconds, then exploded with piercing cheers. First prize! First prize! Kevin jumped around the room. I'm gonna buy a Lamborghini. Maria fumbled for a calculator. Even if we get half, that's 5 million, no 2/3. A short while later, my phone rang. Seeing Dad on the caller ID, I sneered, hit record, and answered. He still had that same arrogant tone. Jenna. Where the hell are you? Get your ass back here now. In the background, I could hear Maria's frantic screaming. Tell her to transfer the money first. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Frank, that's your house. We're not related anymore, remember? Why would I go there? You dare talk back to me? My father panted. Don't think you can get cocky just because you won some money. As long as I'm alive, your money is my money. If you're short 1 penny, I'll break your legs. Watching the furious man on my screen, I clicked my tongue and said with a playful smirk, You want money? Well, I haven't cashed the ticket yet. Those creditors are camped outside my door. How about you all chip in to pay off my debt first? Aren't we family? The line went quiet for a few seconds. Then my uncle's low voice came through. Jenna, you know our family situation. We really don't have that kind of money. Is that so? I let out a slow yawn. That's a shame. There's only one winning ticket. I was thinking I'd give it to whoever helped me out the most. After hanging up, I took a picture of the lottery ticket, deliberately showing only half the numbers, and sent it to the family group chat. On the monitor, my father and uncle exchanged a look. A moment later, Maria's urgent voice was on the phone. Jenna, we're sending you the money now. You know your father and I have always supported you no matter what. A cold smile spread across my face. I added, with malicious intent. Oh, by the way, when you transfer the money, make sure you write voluntary gift in the memo. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare accept it. I could faintly hear Frank cursing on the other end. Before he could say more, I hung up and turned my attention back to the camera. On screen, an enraged Frank swept his arm across the coffee table, sending cups and plates crashing to the floor. That worthless money pit. I should have let her die with her mother back then. Realizing he'd almost let it slip, Frank and Maria exchanged a panicked look with the others in the room. Luckily, no one seemed to have noticed. They quickly changed the subject. Rick, we can't let this little bitch play us like this. We absolutely cannot send her any money. My uncle, looking at my father's resolute face, hesitated before nodding uncertainly. Kevin sat on the floor, clutching his hair. But this is $10 million we're talking about. With 10 million you could buy anything. Hearing his son, my father and uncle exchanged a look with their wives, and then they all went back to their respective rooms. I knew the fish were on the hook. When I woke up the next day, my phone had been blown up with texts and calls. Ignoring the constant calls from Frank and Uncle Rick, I silenced my phone and checked the text messages for the transfer records. Frank transferred $70 memo. Voluntary gift to my beloved daughter. Uncle Rick transferred $80 memo. Voluntary gift to my beloved niece. There was also a voice message from Kevin, sent at 3 a.m. Sis, I sold my gaming account. I sent you $5. I closed the messages, bored, stretched, and casually called Frank back. The second he answered, Maria's shrill voice pierced my ear. Jenna, we sent the most, right? She was panting like a starving wolf fighting over a scrap of food. Your uncle is a cunning old fox, he's always plotting. Only your mom, dad, and brother truly love you. Bring the ticket to me quickly. I sighed, deliberately drawing out my words. Well, unfortunately, Uncle Rick's family sent a little more than you did. And Dad always taught me to be a woman of my word, didn't he? So I guess the ticket. The other end went silent for a few seconds, Then came Frank's furious roar. Bullshit. That's my money. What right does that old bastard have to? Tired of his impotent rage, I said coolly, well, Kevin's car is pretty new, isn't it? You could sell it to cover the gap. Oh, and there's that house you own in the good school district. The line went dead. A few hours later, I received another round of large transfers from Frank. I looked at the voluntary gift memos with satisfaction. I put the half-visible lottery ticket in an envelope and sent it out with a courier. This ticket was bought on the same day as the winning one, but I had intentionally gotten 2 numbers wrong. The prize was only $1. I patted the courier on the shoulder and instructed him to deliver it personally to Mr. Frank Miller. Half an hour later, I watched the delivery confirmation pop up on my phone. I eagerly turned my attention back to the monitor. On the screen, Frank's hands trembled as he tore open the envelope. He pulled out the ticket he considered a treasure and compared the numbers one by one. His face went from flushed to ashen, and finally to a ghastly white. $3,000? He flipped the table. My $2 million only got me this. Maria snatched the ticket, holding it up to the light again and again, before collapsing weakly to the floor. It's over, it's all over. Hearing the commotion, Uncle Rick rushed out of his room. Seeing the worthless $3,000 ticket on the floor, he started screaming hysterically. Frank, your daughter borrowed $80,000 from me. That was my retirement money. Aunt Carol, a moment behind, started wailing and grabbing Maria's hair. Give us our money back. You all must have conspired to trick us. Watching the chaotic scene on my monitor, the melon I was eating tasted exceptionally sweet. After the dust settled, they chose to call the police. But with the voluntary gift memos on the transfers and our blood relationship, the police investigated and ultimately classified the case as a civil financial dispute. After the police left, they spent a long time Googling their options. Ultimately, they decided to sue me. That evening, I received a few small, scattered transfers from them. The amounts were only a few dollars each, but the memos all read, Group lottery purchase fee, winnings to be split equally. I smiled and accepted the money, then went to the store and bought a few random tickets. On the day of the hearing, they sat confidently at the defendant's table. They accused me of not repaying a loan and demanded I split the winnings from our group lottery purchase. Because of the voluntary gift memos, their first claim was dismissed by the court. As for the prize money, I didn't even wait for the judge's ruling. I transferred it to them willingly. Perhaps it was a stroke of luck, but one of the new tickets I bought had actually won $200. As agreed, I sent each of them $1. Frank slammed his hands on the table and shot up from his seat. You little animal. We're talking about $10 million. Are you trying to pay off a beggar? He held up the home security camera, proving I had participated in the discussion about the group buy on the day of the purchase. Watching them, so sure of themselves, I let out a cold laugh and played the recording from that day. Hearing the undeniable proof in the audio, my father and uncle's faces changed. They gritted their teeth, veins popping on their necks and faces in fury. Jenna, you recorded us. You set us up. They struggled to get up and confront me, but were pushed back into their seats by the bailiffs. I decided to add more fuel to the fire. I calmly opened my banking app, tapped on my account balance, and pointed my finger at the staggering number on the screen. You know, I actually bought 50 plays of the winning numbers that day. The prize was $200 million. And every last cent of it is in my account. Maria gasped for air, making a sound like a strangled chicken. Kevin slumped in his chair, his designer tie askew. I clicked my tongue and sighed. What a shame. Frank said it himself. We have no relationship. Frank suddenly charged at me like a mad bull, but he was tackled and pinned to the ground by the bailiffs. For repeatedly disrupting the court, Frank was sentenced to 7 days in jail. 7 days later, I drove by in my brand new luxury car just as he was being released. The days behind bars had worn him down. His shirt, unwashed for a week, was a mess of wrinkles. His once salt and pepper hair was now completely white. He squinted, adjusting to the sunlight of freedom. Seeing Kevin arrive on an electric scooter to pick him up, I couldn't resist rolling down my window to taunt them. Hey Frank, you're looking rough. Where's the BMW? I tapped my steering wheel. Weren't you just bragging about it on Facebook last month? Frank glared at me, his face so dark it looked like it could drip ink. Seeing the murderous look in his eyes, I just smiled coldly and drove away. The pain of being eaten alive by flames, even in a new life, was a nightmare that haunted my nights. From the very beginning, simple revenge by flaunting my wealth was never what I wanted. Now the final act of my vengeance was about to begin. A few days later, I received a message from Frank. His tone was humble, as if he had truly accepted his fate. Jenna, today is the anniversary of your mother's death. Come home for a meal, just our family. I'm old now, you can do whatever you want from now on. If I die one day, just remember to burn some spirit money for me. Reading his emotional appeal, I felt nothing. On my camera feed, Maria was meticulously preparing a feast. Frank's voice came through the speaker, a stark contrast to the warmth of his message. It was laced with cold hatred. Make a few extra dishes. That little bitch is smart. Maria nodded, her hands busy as she poured a clear liquid from a small brown bottle into several of the dishes. Worried I might be suspicious, they had laced at least a third of the dishes on the table with a powerful sedative. In my past life, this was how I'd been drugged and tied to the pyre. Kevin was lounging on the sofa with his legs crossed. He suddenly grinned. Dad, Mom, after that bitch passes out, let's strip her down and take some photos. We can use them to control her later. That 200 million will be ours sooner or later. Frank spun around, his voice like ice. What if she calls the police? Kevin's mouth fell open. He was stunned. Idiot. Frank sneered, dragging a can of gasoline from the storage room out into the yard. The dead are the most obedient. As long as that little bitch is dead, we can legally inherit her assets. The money will still be ours. Watching the video of my father, so determined to burn his own daughter to death, I felt nothing. I saved the video evidence, concealed a voice recorder and a one-touch panic button, and decided to accept the invitation. Staring at the familiar front door, I calmly rang the bell. Maria opened it, her face plastered with a fake smile. Jenna, you're back. Come in, come in. I made your favorite braised pork. Before she finished, she grabbed my wrist and tried to affectionately lead me inside. I shook her hand off and sneered. I've never liked braised pork. If Kevin didn't find it too fatty, a single piece would have never made it to my bowl. The smile on Maria's face froze. Her eye twitched, but she quickly masked it. No problem. I made lots of other dishes today. I promise Kevin won't touch a single bite. She chattered on, pulling me quickly through the yard. I could smell the gasoline in the air. My body tensed, my hands clenching into fists. I took a deep breath, suppressing the fear from my past life, and followed her to the dining table. The dishes on the table were still steaming. Frank sat at the head of the table. He glanced at me, acting no different than usual, and casually passed me a bowl of soup. Drink up. Maria made this especially for you. Looking at the bowl, I laughed inwardly. Specially made was right. Half of that little brown bottle was probably in this soup. I raised the bowl and, under the hopeful gaze of the three of them, took a tiny sip. Then, pretending to wipe my mouth, I discreetly spat it out. A few minutes later, a wave of dizziness washed over me. Luckily, I had only absorbed a tiny amount of the drug from the few seconds it was in my mouth. My head was a little fuzzy, but I was still conscious. To give them their chance to perform, I clutched my forehead and slowly slumped onto the table. Maria immediately rushed over and shook me a few times. Jenna? Jenna. When I didn't respond, her expression changed instantly. She slapped me across the face. You little bitch. Stop faking it. The stinging pain almost made me jump, but I clenched my jaw and didn't give myself away. We should have done this a long time ago. Convinced I was completely unconscious, Maria cackled and took the rope from Frank. We raised you. Your money should be ours. You brought this on yourself. All right, find her phone and bank cards first, then tie her up and drag her outside. And remember to get her pin before you light the fire. Frank directed them coldly, his voice devoid of any emotion, as if I were just an animal about to be slaughtered, not his own daughter. Kevin roughly searched my clothes. After emptying my pockets, he slapped me twice. You bitch. You sold my car? If you hadn't won the lottery, I would have sold you off to be a whore. You're lucky to be getting such an easy death. They dragged me into the yard, my back scraping painfully against the concrete. I discreetly pressed the panic button hidden in my sleeve cuff. Bundles of firewood were piled at my feet. The smell of gasoline filled my nostrils. A moment later, Frank came over with a bucket of cold water, and without hesitation, splashed it on my face. I struggled to open my eyes, pretending I had just woken up from a stupor. Seeing the firewood around me, I feigned shock and screamed, "What are you doing? Aren't we family?" "Family?" Maria sneered, her eyes filled with undisguised contempt. "Look at your pathetic face. If we didn't think we could marry you off for a bit of money while you were still a virgin, we would have thrown you out long ago." Frank held up a lighter. "Jenna, if you don't want to die, give us your bank card PIN." I put on a terrified act and, trembling, gave him 6 random numbers. Frank's face was filled with joy, but a trace of viciousness flickered in his eyes. Seeing him about to drop the lighter, I held back my excitement and screamed the words I'd been waiting to say. "Dad. Dad, I was wrong. I'll give you all the money. For Mom's sake, please spare me." I was crying, a perfect picture of someone terrified of death. Delirious with the thought of getting their hands on $200 million, Maria didn't hesitate to confess. Still thinking about your dead mother? When you fell off that bridge all those years ago, it was your father who told me to push you. It was all to force your mother to her death." I turned my head and stared with the hatred of 2 lifetimes at the man who was my father. His face was blank, showing only the joy of his impending fortune, without a hint of remorse or guilt. He saw me looking. He took a long drag from his cigarette and then, without a second thought, flicked the butt onto the firewood in front of me. The fire roared to life with a whoosh, the flames licking at my eyebrows and hair. I could smell them burning. Luckily, the police arrived just in time. They extinguished the fire and wrestled Frank, Maria, and Kevin to the ground. I touched my forehead. Unlike my last life, where I was consumed by the flames, my only loss this time was a few strands of singed hair. Pinned to the ground, Frank craned his neck, veins bulging on his forehead, his eyes turning red. He struggled, screaming, "Jenna, I'll haunt you even as a ghost." Kevin, kneeling nearby, was much more subdued. Seeing me approach, he dropped to his knees with a thud, banging his head on the ground. "Sis, I was wrong. It was Mom and Dad. They forced me to do it." He wept, snot and tears smearing all over my leg. Disgusted, I stepped back and walked over to Frank. "Don't worry, Dad. When you're dead." I crouched down, leaning close to his ear. Looking at his monstrous face, I let the smile drop from mine and said flatly, "I promise I won't burn a single piece of paper for you." Afterward, I submitted the recordings and the video of their murder attempt to the police. The next time I saw them was 3 months later in court. Gone was their former arrogance. Their eyes were sunken, their bodies stooped and gaunt. Because the case involved 2 murders, one that happened long ago and was hard to prove, and one that was only an attempt, Frank and Maria didn't receive the maximum penalty. They were both sentenced to life in prison. Kevin got 7 years for attempted murder. As the court was adjourning, my uncle, his hair now completely white, suddenly lunged from the gallery. He had somehow smuggled in a fruit knife and, before the bailiffs could react, plunged it into Kevin's stomach. He screamed over and over, "You bastard! Give me my money back!" I watched it all unfold, calm and unsurprised. After I sent the 3 of them to prison, I began to relentlessly flaunt my wealth. My target was a single person, my uncle. In my last life, he could have stopped Frank from burning me, but he let it happen, hoping to use it as leverage to extort money from his brother. This life, I wouldn't let him get away either. The night before the trial, I sent him a screenshot of the chat I'd had with Kevin. "Uncle Rick, did you know? The ticket I asked Kevin to buy that day wasn't just for me. It was for our group buy. It's a shame. If he hadn't stolen the money, that $200 million would be all yours now." My uncle was already obsessed with getting rich. After my constant prodding, he finally unleashed all his fury on Kevin. The paramedics arrived quickly, but my uncle had acted out of pure hatred. Despite emergency surgery, Kevin didn't survive. As Kevin's only living relative outside of prison, I wrote a letter of forgiveness to my uncle on Kevin's behalf. Because of it, my uncle received a lighter sentence. He escaped the death penalty, but he would face the same fate as his brother, life in prison. The next news I received about them came 6 months later, in a notice from the court. Having lost his only son, Frank had turned on his brother in prison. During recreation time, he had used his own handcuffs to strangle Uncle Rick to death. He himself was sentenced to death for the murder. The notice detailed everything and informed me of the date for a final visit. I crumpled the notice into a ball with great satisfaction, with no intention of seeing Frank one last time. My phone screen lit up with a new message from my assistant. "Ma'am, the first list of recipients for the Women's Empowerment Fund you established has been confirmed." The sea breeze, salty and damp, drifted in. In the garden below, the roses were in full bloom. I picked up my coffee and took a small sip. The villains had met their deserved end. It was time for me to start my own new life.